Well, it seems like the Canadian dream could be over for many in India. And going to Australia for studies could get tougher. For one, Canada is all but scrapping its temporary worker program. And what's Australia doing? They're capping the intake of foreign workers. Canada's unemployment rate is more than 6% now. And there has been a severe housing crisis as well. Australia wants to limit the number of immigrants. In fact, for decades, India has seen a lot of Indians leaving for foreign shores in search of a better life. But now the question is that foreign dream, as it were, is it coming to an end? Let's discuss this. Nareshkumar Chavda is a licensed and immigration consultant for Canada. He's joining us on the show, along with Mr. Santosh Rao, the head of research and partner at Manhattan Venture Partners. Gentlemen, thank you for making the time. I want to begin by asking you, Mr. Chavda, you think this is the end of the Canadian dream for many Indian hopefuls who've been working on getting their immigration, all their papers, all their documentation, everything in place to go to Canada? Is this the end of that dream?
Thank you, Vikram Oza and the team actually for allowing me to join this show. I don't think giving the answer to your question is ending the dream. Definitely, there is a limitation. They put the limit on a couple of work permit like semi-skill and skill. Prime Minister of Canada, they just announced last week actually, yesterday also. And before that, last December also, our immigration minister also gave those a kind of hint. So it is because of the current economic situation in North America or Canada, I say. But yeah, it's not fully cut off the work permit or other visa. It's definitely the cut off in the particular categories here.
Yes, there is a limitation, there is a cap, but certainly we get a sense of the direction in which the global economy is moving, Mr. Rao. You're not just hearing about Canada, you're hearing about Australia as well. And you're talking about some restrictions on the number of students they want to intake, Mr. Rao. And that's generally something that a lot of economies earn revenue from. When students come from India and China, they make a lot of money through them. Now, is that reality changing with the way these economies are functioning and the state at which they are and the outlook for their growth in the future?
Thank you for having me. I think overall, it's a temporary pause, if anything, because at the end of the day, Australia and Canada, they need people. There was a massive dislocation because of COVID. A lot of people went out of the workforce. So I think they wanted new people in, but maybe they went overboard. So too much of anything at one time is always bad. Bad politically also. Canada is due for elections next year, and Australia, I'm not sure. But I think definitely Canada and also US. I mean, we might have a new president just because of their immigration policy, of the illegal immigration, the sense that foreigners are coming over and taking away their jobs. That's the sense out there. So I think that's what's playing in here. There's a little bit of xenophobia. They don't want all these things coming in too much. It's a strain on the infrastructure, on the transportation, on the school system, everywhere. So it's a ripple effect all the way around. So I think that's what's playing in. They need people. They need the economy. I think it's a big part of the GDP that it's one of their big exports, student education there. So I wouldn't make it a big thing. It's a temporary pause, if anything. At the end of the day, they'll come back to normality. They need to get a normalized level at this point. They just went overboard on too many things, let it too loose. They need to tighten up. That's what you're going to say.
But certain factors that you were mentioning, Mr. Rao, also are pointing towards xenophobia. I was wondering if you're going to go towards protectionism as well, in terms of keeping jobs for locals, as it were, for native Canadians or native Australians. Is that also a direction change that you're seeing, perhaps a little, but definitely there?
Yeah, I mean, that undercurrent was always there. The sense that the foreigners are coming and taking away their jobs. That sense, that's always lingering on underneath the surface. But overall, I think right now it's still early stages. The percentage of people resenting foreign workers coming in and taking their jobs. And in many cases, especially in the US, you see a lot of people lying, sitting on the floors, sitting on the roads. There's too much influx of foreigners coming in. So I think they want things to straighten out, become more rational in the sense. So xenophobia is definitely picking up, and former President Trump, in a way, will ride that wave if that becomes more and more heavy. So there's a lot of things. And Canada, definitely, he's on weak grounds. Trudeau is not a very strong candidate for the next elections. So I think this is definitely weighing on his mind. They need to give the sense that, hey, we are in control. Things are going to normalize. We went overboard, but that's fine.
Needs to come from the government that we are going to save your jobs for you and not allow migrants to take away your jobs. Mr. Chavda, do you sense that as well? Because though you, of course, as far as your entire business is concerned, you are sending as many migrants as possible who are keen to go and pursue their foreign dream, whether it's Canada or Australia. Of course, these are the options right now. But which are the kind of workers at this stage who are aiming to migrate to Canada, who are in most demand, as you see?
Question, as I have a same echo with Mr. Rao, like it's not a L-shape decrease, but it's a U-shape. So for short time is those policy will be there to when the economy is in a balance, again it will be start. But the worker like currently still in demand, like IT professional, health worker, social service support actually, even though in some particular like labor job like trucking industry, and those are in a most demand at now also in Canada, and I believe in state also USA, and still is the same thing is working. People are coming, and in future also the policy is there, and they invite those kind of workforce also from the currently, as I'm repeating, like the current this kind of post they put for the C and D level, like which is semi skill and the no skill, like laborer actually. And it's not only from the Asian continent,
Right.
but it is from South America also. Like, South America, there are many
Right.
fishing workers coming actually, farm
Yes.
workers coming.
Yes. In fact, that reminds me of Hardeep Singh Puri and what he said. The union minister in October last year said that if you are barely educated and you clear the IELTS exam, then you go to Canada as a truck driver and get a lot of money. The low-skilled manpower requirement of Canada is being met through this, he says. Is this something that you're noticing as well, Mr. Rao? Is that the bigger part of the migrant community that would be in demand in the future as well, and not so much the skilled workers, because those jobs have to be saved for locals?
Yeah, definitely. See, like I said in the beginning, Canada needs people, US needs people. In order to grow their GDP, both these countries need a massive and very rational immigration policy. They are lacking many where. That's why you see all this illegal immigration. In fact, there was one person who said the other day that there's easier to come into this country illegally than legally. So you're going to see a lot of these people come in. There is a demand for both, for skilled and unskilled. So especially in the US it is, and Canada, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, it's about balance. It's about doing it in an organized way, and that's where the problem is. You cannot strain the educational system, the local infrastructure. Like I say, it has a domino effect down the line. And Canada has free healthcare. That's put additional health system. So all those things do count. So there is demand in selected levels, like you say. IT is still in demand. Truck
But is that
drivers are in
demand getting
demand.
restricted, Mr. Rao? Is that
I
demand
would say,
depleting? As global
well,
economy
well,
slows down, or at least there are hints of that, do you see that demand depleting? Which means that fewer Indian migrant hopefuls at least may not be able to pursue that dream.
Yes, yes, that the risk is still there, and it's growing because unemployment is there. The economies are slowing down, so you're going to see that for at least. There's no recession as such, but the economy is going to slow down after big rise in the last few years. So I think it's going to slow down. So there is going to be excess labor, but that's going to be very short term. It's going to go up. They need people at the end of the day, and you need to grow that. So I would say yes, demand is going down. If someone new is planning to come to these countries, I would recommend that they
Yes.
wait, because things are not really easily available. The jobs are not easily available like in the past. So I mean, and this is supply demand imbalance and the macro economy also. So a lot of cross currents playing in there. At the end of the day, there is little imbalance in terms of demand and supply.
So you're calling it a little imbalance, and economies, of course, they take a lot of time to move in terms of the trends that you follow. An economy, if it's going to change its stance, it's going to kind of have a better balance between demand and supply. It doesn't come about immediately. It takes a while for it to actually find its new balance. But Mr. Chavda, I wanted to ask you about people who are pursuing education abroad. And many of them use the education route to settle in countries like Canada, even Australia, even the US. Now that part of the hopeful who's planning a life abroad, has that going to be, is that going to be affected as well? Because now they don't see the potential of getting a job after they finish their education there.
Yeah, Mr. Oja, it's affected. Job market is comparatively low. We never seen this situation in last couple of decades in Canada or North America, I say. So that's the effect. But eventually, those students who coming from Asia or India, I seen majority part of profession, part of social life. They gradually grow and they settle down in Canada. Majority actually in general. But yeah, it's not situation like before. It's tough and people are facing tough to get the job what they're willing to do after completion of study. Canadian government reduced some restriction on the education visa also, or like number of students from different countries. That's going to be effect also more competitive to get the student visa compared to before. But in general, I feel again like it's the same thing. Like it's a U-shape economic downturn. It's going to be grow again within a year or two. And one sign like from September, October, US and Canada mostly they decrease the prime rate actually interest rate, which is one step further to boost up the economy. And there is a low inflation rate coming actually soon, as per the data coming from last couple of months actually. So that's going to be again boost up the economy and eventually the immigration will be normalized as before.
Right, yes. But this news about Canada, Mr. Rao, comes as as an economy grapples with this rapidly growing population that has put a strain on housing and public services like healthcare. But does this also mean that other economies that would be growing, where population is rising, where the aspiration levels are rising as well, those economies would be subject to a similar fate? I wouldn't want to call it fate because essentially it means that the economy is growing. It is creating enough jobs for its own people, but not so much for immigrants. Do you see that happening elsewhere too? Because here we are talking about Canada and Australia, but is this phenomenon likely to spread in other economies?
Yeah, so I mean, here are a few facts. Immigrants are net positive for all these countries. They're hungry. They want to contribute, so they're net positive. That's a given. It Yes, there that sense of being invaded by others, other foreigners taking their jobs. That is natural. It happens all the time. We've seen it in every slowdown period where the wrong people get blamed. It's really not the people's fault. Everybody's entitled for a better life, so they will go looking for a better life. So they are not really doing anything that's unusual. You just have to wait for it to smoothen out a little bit. It will spread to Europe. I think that in some cases it has already. There's a right wing, there's a center right and more further right. That wave is picking up in other countries. So there's a sense of resentment that's been there undercurrent. It's growing more because of the recessionary fears. But at the end of the day, you cannot flip a switch and increase the population. So they know that they need people. You're seeing the population in Japan. You're seeing the population in China. It's kind of shrinking now. They have huge issues down the road. So you need to get these people in an organized way and build it up in order to grow their GDPs. And they realize that. So I don't see a threat yet of spreading, but you're going to see some problems, some issues here and there, but they're blaming the wrong people. They need good immigration policy and organized immigration to get things going.
Do tell us, what are you suggesting to people who come to you? Because if this has been brewing for a while and now they've started putting in the caps, even though, of course, elections and all of that is going to be at play, the politics around it, the right-wing kind of politics, all of that, we understand. But when today someone approaches you to migrate to countries like Canada and Australia, what are you telling them? Are you asking them to wait? Because this is the nature of the beast, as it were, the business that you're running. Mr. Chavda. Mr. Chavda, I was just like Canada and Australia. So I'm just wondering what he's telling them.
Yeah, so thank you. So it is not like they need to pose for the certain time period, but yeah, they need to do some extra. They need to test themselves and they need to do something extra in a requirement to get the visa and in the workforce actually. Otherwise, there is an economy going on, same business going on. So yeah, they must need to do something extra in their skill, their language skill, their education skill, and their experience skill also, and work for to join the workforce. But yeah, it is not like the threat we are feeling like is that way they stop permanently and people are anti immigrant worker. Is it
Yes.
not that the case actually? It's
Yes.
a situation of economic and short time, but they need to do something extra to
Right.
get in the system. Yeah.
So as though it wasn't hard enough to be able to get that permit and all of that in place, now they have to work even harder to pass through the
Yes.
caps that have been placed. And of course, that means more tediousness in being able to migrate. But we'll see exactly how this trend develops. Thanks very much, Mr. Rao, Mr. Chavda, for joining us with your perspective on what we've been tracking by way of the hopes of several Indians who are looking for a better life abroad in countries like Canada and Australia.